August 8th, 1974, 8:32 p.m. Two men, two falls, happening at the exact same time, one in Washington, one in Las Vegas. Richard Nixon sits in the Oval Office. Elvis Presley sits in his dressing room at the Las Vegas Hilton. Both are dying. One career, one body, both beyond saving. Quick thought, have you ever watched someone powerful fall and realized you were falling too? Drop a comment. What happens in the next 18 minutes will reveal a parallel so precise, so haunting, that historians still don't talk about it. Here is the story. August 8th, 1974. Washington, D.C., the White House, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Richard Nixon walks through the halls of power for the last time as a functioning president. His hands shake. Not from age, from knowing. In 24 hours, he will resign. The first president in American history to do so. Watergate has destroyed him. The tapes, the lies. The cover-up, all of it crashing down. He is 61 years old. He has been in power for 5 years, 6 months, and 20 days. Tonight, that power ends. But tonight is not just about Nixon. August 8th, 1974, Las Vegas, Nevada. The Las Vegas Hilton, 4 p.m. Pacific Time, the same moment Nixon walks those White House halls. Elvis Presley sits backstage, Suite 3000, the Imperial Suite. The same suite he's occupied for years. His hands shake too, not from fear, from withdrawal, pills, painkillers, sedatives. His body is failing, at 39 years old. But tonight, he has to perform. 2 shows. Midnight show, 2 a.m. show, 3,000 people waiting for each. The king of rock and roll. Except the king can barely stand. There is a connection between these two men. Most people don't know it. But it happened. December 21st, 1970. 4 years before this night. Elvis walked into the Oval Office. Unannounced. Unexpected. He wanted to meet the president. He wanted a badge. A federal narcotics badge. The irony would become clear later. Nixon met with him. 30 minutes. They shook hands. They talked about drugs destroying America's youth. They talked about patriotism. They took a photo. That photo would become one of the most requested images from the National Archives. Elvis in a purple velvet suit and cape. Nixon in a dark blue suit. 2 men. Both at the height of power, both smiling, both unaware that in 4 years they would both be falling at the exact same moment. August 8th, 1974. Four p.m. Pacific. Elvis's dressing room. Joe Esposito stands near the door. Red West sits on the couch. Charlie Hodge adjusts Elvis's jumpsuit on the rack. White jumpsuit. American Eagle design, covered in rhinestones and studs, designed by Bill Ballou, weighing 25 pounds. Elvis stares at it. Joe. I can't do this tonight. Joe steps forward. Boss, you have to. The contracts. Elvis cuts him off. I know about the contracts. Silence. Red exchanges a look with Charlie. Nobody moves. Elvis's voice drops lower. Did you see the news? Red nods. Yeah, boss. Nixon's gonna resign tomorrow. Elvis doesn't respond immediately. He just stares at the jumpsuit. Finally, he speaks. We met, you know, back in '70. Joe nods. We know, boss. We were there. Elvis shakes his head. No. I mean, we really met, man to man. Not just a photo op. He pauses. We talked about what was destroying this country. Drugs, crime, chaos. Another pause. And now look at us. Red doesn't understand. Look at who, boss? Elvis finally turns. Me and him, both of us. Both falling apart at the same time. August 8th, 1974, 7:30 p.m. Eastern, Washington, D.C., the Executive Office Building. Nixon sits alone in his private study. Not the Oval Office. Too many people there. Too many eyes. Here, he can think. His hands rest on the desk. Mahogany desk. Gifted to him by foreign dignitaries. A symbol of power. Now it feels like a cage. On the desk, a letter. His resignation letter. Already written. Dated for tomorrow, August 9th, 1974. He hasn't signed it yet. His hand hovers over it, pen in hand. But he can't bring himself to do it. Not yet. There's a knock at the door. Come in. Henry Kissinger enters. Secretary of State, Nixon's closest advisor. Kissinger's face is drawn. Tired. He sits across from Nixon without being asked. Mr. President. Nixon doesn't look up. Don't call me that. Not anymore. Kissinger pauses. Then what should I call you? Nixon finally looks at him. A man who tried. A man who failed. Kissinger doesn't respond. Nixon continues. You know what the worst part is, Henry? Kissinger shakes his head. Nixon's voice cracks slightly. I was supposed to be different. I was supposed to fix this country, end the war, build peace. And instead, he gestures to the letter. Instead, this. Kissinger leans forward. History will remember more than this moment, Mr. President. Nixon laughs, bitter, short. Will it? Or will they just remember the tapes, the lies, the fall? Kissinger doesn't answer. Because there is no good answer. August 8th, 1974. 5 p.m. Pacific, Las Vegas Hilton, backstage. Dr. George Nicopolis stands near Elvis, known as Dr. Nick, Elvis's personal physician. He holds a small pill bottle. Elvis. You need to take these now if you want to make it through tonight. Elvis looks at the bottle. What's in there this time? Dr. Nick's voice is clinical. Dexedrine, for energy, dilaudid. For the pain. Elvis doesn't reach for the bottle. And what happens after the show? Dr. Nick shifts uncomfortably. We'll give you something to bring you down, let you sleep. Elvis laughs. It's not a happy sound. Sleep. Right. He takes the bottle, opens it, pours 3 pills into his palm, swallows them dry. No water, just pills. He's done this so many times he doesn't need water anymore. Joe watches from across the room. He's seen this ritual hundreds of times, but tonight feels different. Tonight feels like something is ending. Let me ask you something. Have you ever felt like you were disappearing while the world watched? Like you were falling, but everyone just kept applauding? Drop a comment if you have, because that's what August 8th, 1974 was for both of these men. The world watching, both of them disappearing, and nobody connecting the dots. August 8th, 1974, 8 p.m. Eastern, Washington, D.C., the White House family quarters. Nixon sits with his family. Pat Nixon. His wife, Tricia Nixon Cox. His daughter, Julie Nixon Eisenhower. His younger daughter, David Eisenhower, his son-in-law. They don't speak much. What is there to say? Pat holds Richard's hand. She hasn't let go for 20 minutes. Her grip is tight. Too tight. Richard, you don't have to do this. Nixon looks at her. Yes, I do. But why? Why can't you fight? Why can't you? Because I've already lost, Pat. His voice is flat. Final. Julie speaks up. Daddy, we can appeal. We can... Nixon shakes his head. No, it's over. The impeachment vote will pass. The Senate will convict. I'll be removed. At least this way, I control when it happens. Tricia wipes her eyes. She's been crying on and off all day. What do we do now? Nixon doesn't have an answer. Because he doesn't know. For the first time in his political life, he has no plan. No strategy. No next move. Just an ending. August 8th, 1974. 5:30 p.m. Pacific. Las Vegas. Elvis's suite. Linda Thompson sits on the bed. Elvis's girlfriend. She's been with him for 3 years. She watches him pace. Back and forth. Back and forth. Elvis, please sit down. Elvis doesn't stop pacing. I can't. If I sit, I'll fall asleep. If I fall asleep, I won't wake up in time for the show. Linda stands, walks to him, puts her hands on his shoulders. Then maybe you shouldn't do the show. Elvis stops, looks at her. I have to. Why? Because of the contract? Because of the colonel? Elvis shakes his head. Because if I don't, then what am I? Linda doesn't understand. You're Elvis. You'll always be Elvis. Elvis's voice drops to almost a whisper. No. If I stop performing, I'm just a guy who used to be Elvis. I'm just a guy who couldn't handle it. He pauses. I'm just another guy who fell. Linda's eyes well up. You're not falling. Elvis looks at her. Really? Then why does it feel like I am? August 8th, 1974. 8:30 p.m. Eastern, Washington, D.C. Nixon's private study. He's alone again. Kissinger has left. Family has gone to bed. Staff has been dismissed. It's just Nixon and the letter. He picks up the pen again, holds it over the signature line. His hand doesn't shake this time, because he's made the decision. Tomorrow morning, 11 a.m. Eastern, he will address the nation. He will announce his resignation, effective at noon the following day, August 9th, 1974, the end of the Nixon presidency. But tonight, in this moment, he's still technically president. He signs the letter. Richard M. Nixon, clean, steady, final. He sets the pen down, leans back in the chair, and for the first time in months he feels something like relief. Not happiness, not peace, but relief, because at least it's over. At least the waiting is done. August 8th, 1974. 6 p.m. Pacific, Las Vegas, backstage. The pills are starting to work. Elvis feels the energy hit his bloodstream. Artificial energy, chemical focus. His vision sharpens, his heart rate increases, his hands stop shaking. This is the Elvis the audience will see, not the real Elvis, the pharmaceutical Elvis. Joe approaches. Boss, it's time. Elvis nods, stands. Charlie helps him into the jumpsuit, the white American Eagle jumpsuit. 25 pounds of fabric and rhinestones. It takes 4 people to get it on him properly. The weight presses on his shoulders. The belt cinches at his waist, already swollen from weight gain. 287 pounds, at 5 feet 11 inches, the heaviest he's ever been. But the jumpsuit hides some of it. The cape hides more. From the audience, he'll still look like a star. Up close, in this dressing room, he looks like a man barely holding on. August 8th, 1974. 9 p.m. Eastern, Washington, D.C. Nixon walks through the White House one last time before bed. Past the portraits of former presidents. George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Abraham Lincoln, Theodore Roosevelt, Franklin D. Roosevelt, all of them staring down from the walls, judging. Nixon stops in front of Lincoln's portrait. Stares up at it. Lincoln saved the Union. Nixon couldn't even save himself. He whispers to the empty hall, I'm sorry. Nobody hears him. Nobody responds. Just silence and the weight of history. August 8th, 1974. Midnight, Las Vegas Hilton. Showroom. 3,000 people packed in. The lights dim. The orchestra starts. The opening notes of Also Sprach Zarathustra, theme from 2001, A Space Odyssey. Elvis's entrance music, the same music he's used for years. The crowd erupts, screaming, applauding. Cameras flashing. The curtain parts. And there he is, Elvis Presley, under the spotlights. The white jumpsuit glowing. The cape flowing. The American Eagle shining. From the audience, he looks perfect. Like a god. Like the king. But up close, if you look carefully, you can see it. The sweat already forming on his forehead. The slight sway in his stance. The way his eyes don't quite focus. He grabs the microphone. "Good evening, ladies and gentlemen." His voice is strong, confident, practiced. The crowd screams louder. He smiles. That famous Elvis smile, half sneer, half grin, completely manufactured. Because inside, he feels nothing. Just the pills, just the performance, just the weight of the jumpsuit and the expectations and the years of being Elvis Presley. He launches into CC Rider. His opening number, the band kicks in, drums, bass, guitar, horns. Elvis moves, not like he used to, not with the hip swings and the energy of the 50s, but he moves because he has to. Because this is what the king does. August 9th, 1974. 9 a.m. Eastern, Washington, D.C. Nixon wakes up. Last morning as president, he showers, shaves, puts on a dark blue suit, white shirt, red tie. The same combination he's worn 1,000 times. Today it feels like a costume. Pat stands in the doorway of the bathroom. "Are you ready?" Nixon looks at himself in the mirror. No. But he doesn't say that out loud. Instead, he says, yes. August 9th, 1974. 6 a.m. Pacific, Las Vegas, Elvis's suite. The midnight show ended at 1:30 a.m. The 2 a.m. show ended at 3:45 a.m. Elvis got back to his suite at 4 a.m. Dr. Nick gave him sedatives, Quaaludes, Valium, Placidil, to counteract the Dexedrine from earlier, to bring him down, to let him sleep. He's been asleep for 2 hours, but it's not restful sleep. It's chemical unconsciousness. Linda lies awake next to him, watching him breathe, making sure he's still breathing, because sometimes she's not sure he will be. The TV is on, muted, news playing. She sees Nixon's face on the screen, sees the text at the bottom. "President Nixon to resign today." She looks at Elvis, still unconscious, still unaware, still trapped in his own fall. August 9th, 1974. 11 a.m. Eastern, the Oval Office. Nixon sits at the resolute desk, the same desk used by presidents since 1880. TV cameras are set up, 3 networks, CBS, NBC, ABC, millions of Americans watching. The producer counts down, 5, 4, 3, 2, he points. Red light on the camera. Nixon looks directly into it. "Good evening." Even though it's morning, he says, "Evening." Force of habit. All his addresses have been at night. He corrects himself. "Good morning. This is the 37th time I have spoken to you from this office." His voice is steady, rehearsed. He continues. "In all the decisions I have made in my public life, I have always tried to do what was best for the nation." A pause. "Throughout the long and difficult period of Watergate, I have felt it was my duty to persevere." Another pause. "But America needs a full-time president and a full-time Congress." He shifts slightly. "Therefore, I shall resign the presidency effective at noon tomorrow." The words are out, the official announcement. Across America, people stop what they're doing. Some cry, some cheer, some just stare in disbelief, because this has never happened before. A president resigning, giving up power, admitting defeat. Nixon continues for another 16 minutes, but those words are the only ones that matter. "I shall resign." August 9th, 1974. 8 a.m. Pacific, Las Vegas, Elvis's suite. He wakes up, groggy, disoriented. His mouth is dry, his head pounds. He reaches for water on the nightstand. Drinks. Looks at the TV, still on, still showing Nixon. The speech is being replayed, over and over, every network. Elvis watches. Nixon's face, saying the words, "I shall resign." Elvis sits up slowly. Linda stirs next to him. What time is it? Elvis doesn't answer. He's focused on the TV, on Nixon, on the fall. Linda sits up, sees what he's watching. Oh, he actually did it. Elvis nods slowly. Yeah, he did. Linda looks at Elvis. Are you okay? Elvis doesn't respond right away. Finally, he says, We met once. Did I ever tell you that? Linda nods. You mentioned it. Elvis keeps watching the screen. We talked about drugs, about how they were destroying young people. He laughs. One short, bitter sound. The irony. Linda doesn't know what to say. Because what can you say? Elvis continues. He's falling, I'm falling. Same time, same moment in history. Linda puts her hand on his arm. You're not falling, Elvis. Elvis looks at her. His eyes are clear for the first time in hours. Yes, I am. August 9th, 1974. 9:01 a.m. Eastern, Washington, D.C. Nixon's speech is over. He stands from the desk, removes the microphone, walks out of the Oval Office. Staff members line the hallways, some crying, some applauding. Nixon doesn't acknowledge them. He just walks, back to the residence, to pack, to prepare for tomorrow, when he will officially no longer be president, when Gerald Ford will be sworn in, when Richard Nixon will just be Richard Nixon. Citizen, former president, disgraced leader, nothing more. August 9th, 1974. 9:30 a.m. Pacific, Las Vegas, Elvis's suite. He's still sitting on the bed, still watching the TV. Joe Esposito knocks on the door, enters. Boss, we need to talk about tonight's shows. Elvis doesn't look away from the screen. Cancel them. Joe's eyes widen. Boss, we can't just... Elvis turns to face him. His voice is firm. Cancel them, Joe. All of them. The rest of the Vegas run. Cancel it. But the contracts... Elvis stands. I don't care about the contracts. I don't care about the colonel's threats. I don't care about any of it. He points at the TV. That man just gave up the most powerful position in the world. And you know what? He did the right thing. Joe doesn't understand. Boss, you're not making sense. Elvis walks to the window, looks out at Las Vegas, the Strip, the lights, the casinos, all of it still glittering in the desert sun. I can't do this anymore, Joe. Can't do what? Elvis's voice is quiet now. Pretend, perform, be Elvis Presley when I'm not him anymore. Joe steps forward. You are him. You'll always be... Elvis cuts him off. No, I'm not. Not like this. Not like this. He gestures to himself, his swollen body, his medicated state, his exhaustion. Joe doesn't know what to say, because part of him knows Elvis is right. Finally, Joe speaks. Okay, boss. I'll talk to the colonel. We'll figure something out. Elvis nods. Thank you. The parallel wasn't just that they both fell on the same day. It was deeper than that. Both men had been given everything. Power, influence, adoration. Nixon had the presidency. Elvis had the crown of rock and roll. Both men had reached heights most could never imagine, and both men destroyed themselves from within, not through external enemies, but through their own choices. Nixon chose the cover-up. Elvis chose the pills. Nixon chose paranoia. Elvis chose isolation. Both men surrounded themselves with yes men. Both men stopped listening to truth. Both men believed they were invincible, until the moment they weren't. August 10th, 1974, 12 p.m. Eastern, Washington, D.C., the East Room of the White House. Nixon stands before his staff for the last time, his family beside him, Pat, Tricia, Julie, David. His voice cracks as he speaks. Always remember, others may hate you, but those who hate you don't win unless you hate them. And then you destroy yourself. The words hang in the air, a final piece of wisdom, or a warning, or an admission. Maybe all three. He walks to Marine One, the presidential helicopter. Waiting on the south lawn, the rotors already spinning, he turns at the stairs. Raises both hands, the victory sign, or peace sign, depending on how you see it. One last gesture, one last photo, then he boards. The door closes, the helicopter lifts off. Gerald Ford watches from the ground, soon-to-be president. As Marine One disappears into the sky, the Nixon presidency officially ends. August 10th, 1974. 9 a.m. Pacific, Las Vegas. Elvis boards a private plane, headed back to Memphis, to Graceland. The Vegas run canceled, contract broken, Colonel Parker furious. But Elvis doesn't care. He sits in the leather seat, looks out the window, watches Las Vegas shrink below him. The city that made him millions. The city that almost killed him. Joe sits across from him. Where to now, boss? Elvis doesn't answer right away. He's thinking about Nixon, about the resignation, about the fall. Finally, he speaks. Home. Just want to go home. Joe nods. The plane takes off. And as it climbs into the Nevada sky, Elvis Presley leaves Las Vegas behind. Not knowing if he'll ever come back. Not knowing if he even wants to. The parallel continues beyond August 1974. Both men lived in isolation after their falls. Nixon retreated to San Clemente, California, his western White House, now just his house. He wrote memoirs, gave occasional interviews, tried to rebuild his reputation. But the stain of Watergate never fully washed away. Elvis retreated to Graceland, his Memphis mansion, his palace. He performed occasionally, took more pills. Gained more weight, tried to be Elvis. But the body was failing, the voice was fading, the king was dying. 3 years later, August 16, 1977, Graceland, Memphis, Tennessee, 2:30 p.m. Ginger Alden finds Elvis in the bathroom, fallen, face down on the floor, not breathing. She screams for help. Joe Esposito rushes in, tries CPR, calls for an ambulance, but it's too late. Elvis Aaron Presley is dead, 42 years old, cause of death, cardiac arrhythmia, but everyone knows the real cause, the pills. The lifestyle, the years of abuse, the slow fall that started long before August 1974, but accelerated after. April 22, 1994, New York City, Nixon suffers a stroke. 4 days later, on April 22nd, he dies. 81 years old, surrounded by family. Unlike Elvis, he had time. Time to reflect, time to write, time to partially rehabilitate his image as a foreign policy expert. But Watergate always followed him. The resignation always followed him. August 9, 1974, always followed him. The parallel nobody talks about is this. August 1974 was the death of American innocence in 2 different ways. Nixon's resignation proved that even the president wasn't above the law. That power could be held accountable. That the system, however flawed, could still function. But it also proved that heroes could fall, that the powerful could be corrupt, that the myth of American exceptionalism had cracks. Elvis's physical collapse in that same moment proved something else. That even kings can die. That fame doesn't protect you. That success doesn't save you. That you can have everything and still lose yourself. Both men represented different versions of the American dream. Nixon, the poor boy from Yorba Linda who became president. Elvis, the poor boy from Tupelo who became the king. Both achieved the impossible. Both were destroyed by their achievements. Both fell at the exact same moment in history, and America watched both falls. One on TV, announced to the world. One in private, hidden behind pills and jumpsuits. But both equally tragic. Both equally inevitable. Both equally American. There's something else. Something most people don't realize. The photo of Elvis and Nixon from December 21st, 1970, that photo in the Oval Office. It became the most requested photograph from the National Archives. More than photos of the moon landing, more than photos of presidents with foreign leaders. More than photos of historic moments. Why? Because it captured something people wanted to believe in. Two American icons, both at the height of power, both representing different aspects of American greatness. The president and the king, together, united. Symbols of a country that still believed in itself. But the truth behind that photo is darker, because by 1970 both men were already falling. Nixon was already paranoid, already planning the actions that would lead to Watergate. Elvis was already addicted, already on the path that would lead to his death. The photo wasn't two men at their peak. It was two men at the beginning of their end. And they didn't even know it. Or maybe they did. Maybe that's why they both smiled so widely. Because they knew it was all a performance, all a lie, all temporary. Quick question. Have you ever looked back at a photo of yourself and realized you were already falling apart, even though you were smiling? That's what that photo of Elvis and Nixon was. A smile covering a collapse. Drop a comment if you've experienced that. Let's talk about the medication, because that's where the parallel gets even more precise. Nixon used sleeping pills, prescribed by his doctor, to handle the stress, to handle the insomnia, to handle the weight of the presidency. He became dependent on them, not publicly, not obviously, but his staff knew, his family knew. By August 1974, he was taking them every night, sometimes during the day, to numb the reality of what was happening. Elvis used everything. Uppers to perform, downers to sleep, painkillers for chronic pain, sedatives for anxiety, prescribed by Dr. Nick, prescribed by other doctors, prescribed by anyone who would write a prescription. By August 1974, he was taking dozens of pills per day, legally, through prescriptions, but still destroying himself. Both men self-medicated. Both men used chemistry to cope with reality. Both men believed the pills were helping, until they weren't. The families saw it too. Pat Nixon knew her husband was breaking. She saw the paranoia, the anger, the desperation. She tried to get him to stop, to step away, to save himself. But he wouldn't listen, because he thought he could control it. He thought he could manage it. He thought he was stronger than the situation. Linda Thompson knew Elvis was dying. She saw the weight gain, the lethargy, the addiction. She tried to get him to stop, to get real help, to save himself. But he wouldn't listen, because he thought he needed the pills to function. He thought he couldn't be Elvis without them. He thought he was managing it. Both families watched the fall. Both families couldn't stop it. Both families lived with the guilt afterward. Wondering if they could have done more, knowing they probably couldn't have. Because you can't save someone who doesn't want to be saved. There's a document, most people don't know about it, from the National Archives, a memo from August 1974, written by a White House aide. It describes Nixon's state in the final days. Quote, "The president sleeps only 2 to 3 hours per night. He paces the halls. He talks to portraits of former presidents. He seems detached from reality at times." "We are concerned about his mental state." End quote. That memo was classified for 20 years, released in 1994, the same year Nixon died. There's also a document from Elvis's camp, a diary entry from Red West, one of Elvis's Memphis Mafia members, written in August 1974. Quote, "Elvis isn't sleeping. He's up all night. He talks to himself. He seems like he's somewhere else, even when he's right in front of you. I'm worried he won't make it much longer." End quote. That diary entry wasn't published until after Red's death in 2017. 2 men, 2 documents, 2 descriptions. Almost identical, both from August 1974. Both describing men who had lost their grip on reality. Both describing men in free fall. And here's the thing that haunts me most. Both men knew they were falling. They weren't ignorant. They weren't unaware. Nixon knew Watergate would destroy him. He had opportunities to come clean earlier, to admit the truth before it was too late. But he chose to cover it up, chose to lie, chose to protect the image instead of the reality, and that choice killed his presidency. Elvis knew the pills were killing him. He had opportunities to get clean, to check into rehab, to stop performing and heal, but he chose to keep going, chose to keep taking them, chose to protect the performance instead of the person, and that choice killed him. Both men prioritized the myth over the man. Both men sacrificed themselves for their image. Both men chose the fall. After Nixon's resignation, he gave one interview that stands out, with David Frost, the famous Frost-Nixon interviews. At one point, Frost asks Nixon if he feels he let the American people down. Nixon pauses, a long pause. Then he says, "I let down my friends. I let down the country. I let down our system of government." His voice cracks, real emotion, not performance, just regret. Raw and honest. That interview aired in May 1977, 3 months before Elvis died. Elvis never gave an interview like that, never admitted his addiction publicly, never confessed his fall. He kept performing, kept smiling, kept pretending, until his body gave out. The final parallel. Both men died alone in a sense. Nixon died surrounded by family, but isolated from the world. His legacy tainted, his name synonymous with scandal, alone in history. Elvis died surrounded by pills, but isolated from reality, his body destroyed, his talent wasted, alone in that bathroom. Both men achieved everything. Both men lost everything. Both men left behind questions. What if Nixon had admitted the truth earlier? What if Elvis had stopped performing and gotten help? Would they have been saved? We'll never know. Because they both chose the fall, and the fall chose them. Here's what I want you to understand. The parallel between Nixon resigning and Elvis dying isn't just about timing. It's not just about 2 men falling in the same month. It's about what they represent. The cost of power, the price of fame, the danger of believing your own myth. Nixon believed he was above the law. Elvis believed he was immune to the pills. Both were wrong. Both paid the price. And both became cautionary tales about what happens when you sacrifice yourself for success, about what happens when you lose touch with reality, about what happens when the performance becomes more important than the person. August 8, 1974. 2 men falling, one in public, one in private. Both at the same moment. Both for the same reasons. Pride, denial, addiction to power or pills or both. That's the parallel. That's the story nobody tells. Because it's too painful, too honest, too American. But it's true, and it matters. Because both men were human. Both men were flawed. Both men were destroyed by their own choices. And both men left behind lessons we should never forget. Final thought. When you see that photo of Elvis and Nixon from 1970, both smiling, both confident, both seemingly invincible, remember what happened 4 years later. Remember August 1974. Remember that power is temporary. Remember that fame is fleeting. Remember that no one is immune to falling. And remember that the greatest danger isn't external, it's internal. It's the choices we make, the lies we tell ourselves, the myths we build. Both Nixon and Elvis built myths, and both myths collapsed at the exact same time. That's not coincidence. That's poetry, tragic poetry. But poetry nonetheless. If this story affected you, drop a like. If you see the parallel now, leave a comment. If you know someone who needs to hear this, share it. Because this isn't just about Nixon and Elvis. It's about all of us, about the masks we wear, about the lies we tell, about the falls we choose, and about whether we have the courage to be honest before it's too late. Nixon eventually found some honesty, too late to save his presidency, but enough to die with some dignity. Elvis never did. He performed until the end. And the performance killed him. Choose honesty. Choose truth. Before the fall chooses you. And unfortunately, they don't make men like Elvis Presley anymore, or men like Richard Nixon, for better and for worse. That's the parallel. That's the story. That's August 1974, two falls, one moment in history, never forgotten.